Welcome, everybody. It is not Monday night. Oh, my watch does tell what day it is. It better since it's a futurized watch. And this is In the Batter's Box, the NGFC Sports Weekly Baseball Show. I'm your host, Ralph Garcia, joined by the guys. But before we do anything about the show, well, you got to do something about the site. NGFCSports.com, where you catch all of your current content. Since this is a baseball show, we'll start it with John. America East baseball tournament is over, and somebody's representing them in the dance.
Yeah, it was a cold, miserable, rainy weekend in Orono, Maine.
How did I know you were going to?
They lost Friday. They almost lost Saturday. It was a scramble to get that thing in, but they did. And the Binghamton Bearcats, for the sixth time in the last 16 years, and for the first time since 2022, are going to represent the conference in the field of 64. They had to win 4 games to get it done, and they did. Devin Bade had a terrific series, terrific weekend rather, because he ended up being the most valuable player up there in that tournament. But it was a scramble to get that thing done.
John, you got something else to report on? There's a repeat.
Yeah, the PWHL finished their season last night, and the Minnesota Frost repeated as champions of the league. However, Gwen Phillips, the goaltender of the Ottawa Charge, ended up being the MVP, and she certainly deserved it based on what she did. I mean, she basically put that team on her back and got them to the finals, and unfortunately, it didn't work out. I mean, Ottawa just couldn't score goals. Maddie Rooney, the goaltender for the Frost, ended up being 5-0 overall after she took over for during the semifinal phase of the tournament against Toronto. I mean, give the Frost credit. They do just enough during the regular season to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're not interested in the regular season title. They don't care, but they do just enough to get there. And then once they get there, it's the 10 games in the playoffs that mean everything to them, because they're truly convinced that they're the best team in the league when it comes down to it. And they demonstrated it once again that they are.
I was going to say, John, when you look at the playoffs, again, year 2, it's NGSC Sports. I'm honored and privileged to be able to cover the PWHL. Looking at the Frost season, you said it real well, John, because it wasn't the Minnesota Frost team that took last year's championship and just rode it into the regular season. They didn't do that, and they never hit that stride, but they did enough to get to where they wanted to get. And like you said, when it came playoff time, yeah, you saw the Minnesota team you saw last year that won the title. So congratulations to the Frost.
Now, the last thing about this, I think what's interesting is you're talking about 4 games. They all went to overtime. They were all 2-1 games.
Yeah.
Every one of them. Now, the debate is going to be all summer long whether or not this was exciting brand of hockey. And you can make the argument on both sides of the coin whether or not you actually believe it was or it wasn't. The attendance was good, but I do think that the Minnesota Frost and the league may have reduced ticket prices to allow those fans to show up, because of the fact, especially in Minnesota, those 2 games were played on the same days that the Minnesota Timberwolves were playing in the Western Conference Finals against Oklahoma City. So
Very good.
There could have been some reduced ticket prices that allowed for the 8,000 that showed up on Saturday and then the 11,000 that showed up last night, because I tend to think that if the prices had been what they should have been, I don't think those crowds would have shown up.
No.
And for all you chauvinistic pigs out there that keep talking about this league, you were saying the same crap about the WNBA.
True.
And first and foremost, in case you haven't noticed, I'm a man. I was born a man and I'm still a man. All you chauvinistic pigs, I'm going to be nice to you because my partner doesn't like it when I'm not nice. But you look real stupid because all it is that you just don't like women playing sports. Now look at what's happened to the WNBA over the last 3-4 years. The women's college basketball. It's coming for the professional women's hockey league. It's coming. Believe that. It's coming.
Absolutely.
One more thing up there on NGSC Sports. Every once in a while, I tell the guy, I write. Not as often as John wants me to. Never as often as John would like me to. But I write. And Louis, I entitled this one,
Yes.
Knicks comeback. Towns fourth quarter cuts Pacers lead to 2-1. Two agonizing games. Well, easy, Louis. Two agonizing games in the Garden sees two teams that have yet to win at home. The Pacers get a chance to take care of that in game 3. Another 20-point comeback by the New York Knicks, fueled by a 20-point fourth quarter by Karl-Anthony Towns. Louis, let's not get happy. Game 4 tonight in Indiana. This is a Pacer team that is absolutely loaded and has shown us fans, Knicks fans, NBA fans, and anybody who's ready to tell the truth, damn, this Indiana team is good. Really, really good. So, Louis?
In Cleveland, yeah. So
the dilemma is what happens with Brunson. Yes, I think Brunson's holding the ball too much. You don't want him to stop scoring. He's got to share it, Louis. But you know who has to do? Karl-Anthony Towns needs to play 4 quarters like he played the 4th.
that's right.
And then we'll see. All that and more
Okay.
at DSCSports.com, where we never stop. It is this past week in Major League Baseball. We talk about the stories that we want to talk about, don't want to talk about, that are happening, that are not happening. We never make anything up, though, or at least we try not to. Now, I'm going to start with Louis because, of course, as John is putting out the little agenda, Louis wants to throw it in everybody's face. The Yankees are firmly in third place. Hey, Louis, and your Yankees, Louis. But tell us about your first place Yankees, Louis.
Yeah, still got it. Even though they lost to the worst team in baseball on Friday, the Rockies, which I found absolutely sickening, at least they were able to bounce back and take that. I mean, Judge, of course, is still phenomenal. He's got, he was tied for the lead in home runs until last night, but Judge is still swinging the bats and causing havoc with the rest of the American League. So he's obviously doing something right. I just still can't believe they lost to the Rockies on Friday. I was just, ugh. But other than that, despite the hiccup, they're taking control of the American League East, and I think it's going to be a very interesting summer for the rest of some of the Bronx.
Now, John, it would be like Louis to say that the Yankees are taking control of the East in May. I don't think anybody takes control of anything in May unless, I don't know, they're 37 games up in May, so to speak. But unfortunately for us who are not, as I share this show across the social media land, unfortunately for those of us, John, who are not exactly Yankee fans, we do have to admit, listen, Aaron Judge, it is something to watch him, John, because I got to know Aaron Judge. We followed Aaron Judge college to hear. That's not what I'm saying, but I got to know Aaron Judge in baseball as a lot of people in the beginning. John is a power hitter. Guy could hit a mammoth home run, tall guy, big guy. But damn, John, but this guy can hit. This guy can hit to all fields. He can hit everything. And the numbers that he's putting up, John.
Well, the numbers are certainly very good, no question. And he's certainly putting up MVP numbers once again. But again, for Aaron Judge, it's all about 1 month. It's still all about the month of October. And that's the month that he's going to have to really get it together and put this team on his back and get them to where they think they can be. give the Yankees credit. They have taken advantage of the early portion of their schedule, which frankly features more under 500 teams than it does 500 or better teams. And they have beaten up on these teams like they're supposed to, which has provided them with an opportunity to extend this lead and really put themselves in a very good position as we get past the first summer holiday of the season and move on toward the 4th of July and the All-Star break. I mean, the Yankees are in great shape, but they really have done a very good job of taking advantage of a schedule that, at least in the beginning, is not as difficult and or strong as it will eventually be.
One of the big things, and again, to win the game, you have to score more runs than the other team. We all know that, right? Okay. All right. One of the things that's helped the Yankees a lot, John, because they're 17-14 with 17-14 record against teams above 500. But they score so much. They score so many runs that even lapses in defense kind of go to the wayside because they're outscoring teams. I mean, just so frequently.
Well, not only are they outscoring teams, but their bullpen is also get the job done when it needs to be done. And there have been lapses, this is true. But for the most part, the bullpen has gotten the job done when they've had to. And they're getting, again, good starting pitching from Max Fried and from and Carlos Rodon, the guys that they need to get it from if they're going to be anything this summer. So, I mean, right now the Yankees are clicking on all cylinders. There's no question about it. They've extended a lead in the East, despite the fact that Tampa Bay is starting to play well. They've won 6 in a row. They're starting to play much better baseball. But still, as long as the Yankees can keep everybody basically at arm's length, it's going to make it a lot easier for them to not only make the playoffs, but to do it comfortably.
John, what's going up there? What's going on up there with the Sox?
They just can't score runs at the moment, and that's been a problem for them. And since Alex Bregman injury, the Red Sox have been unable to win a game. It's 0-4 going into tonight's game in Milwaukee. But their inability to score runs is unfortunately allowing them to waste some pretty good pitching performances that have been taking place that they just can't get wins for. And unless this offense can turn it around and start scoring some runs and giving that pitching staff the kind of support it needs, this could get ugly.
That's pretty bad. I need somebody to. I mean, they're not pulling away, but 6 and 7 game lead for the New York Yankees is not comforting right now, to say the least, obviously. But we turn our attention, John, over to the. By the way, to watch what's happening with the Baltimore Orioles, it is. I'm only speaking for me, Louis, but it's almost made me forget how good they got, because it seems like they're just the Orioles again.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out myself. I mean, what happened during the offseason? I mean, I thought you had your majority of your players back, but either not hitting the balls or these new guys are just not living up to what they were 2 years ago. 101 2023, they had 91 this last season, and now all of a sudden they're back at the dump.
And speaking of above 500, John, teams that they were beating the last couple of years, 8-17 against teams above 500, and another team like Boston, even worse, 205 runs. Orioles can't score runs.
No, they can't, and they haven't been able to score runs since the season began. And unfortunately, that pitching staff has leaked far too often, both the starting staff and the bullpen. It really has been a collective effort that has allowed the Orioles to be where they are. And
college baseball at the bottom of the hour, buddy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, for the Orioles, it really has become a very difficult thing, and it's why Brandon Hyde got fired. He got fired because he just couldn't put this team in the right direction, and consequently, they had to relieve him of his duties. I think for the Orioles, they've got some interesting decisions to make, because if this core of young players is not going to get it done, then you've got to bring some in here to make this thing work, which means that some of these guys are going to have to go. And as I said last week, when you look at the draft when it comes up, they're going to have the 19th pick, the 30th pick, and the 31st. So they're going to have 3 more picks in the top 35 to add to a farm system that may be starting to get overloaded. And I do think that this new ownership group is going to have to figure out how many of these draft picks do they need to keep, and how many of these picks do they start using as the trade bait to turn this thing around.
Kind of crazy hearing you say that, John, because translation, correct me if I'm wrong, my translation that you're saying is the Orioles may have gotten too much talent.
Right. And I think that is possible. They got too much young talent. Yes, I think that is very possible.
Well, should they be making a good sign rather than a bad sign because they got the talent? So why aren't they winning the games?
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask. So how does a team that has played this same team that has played like they have the last 2-3 years? How is it they're playing like the old Orioles again?
Again, you've got a pitching staff that's not getting the job done. They let Corbin Burns go in the offseason, which may have been a mistake. He's now in Arizona. And so you don't have that ace at the front of the rotation that's going to give you at least a shot every 5th day. This pitching staff just hasn't been very good at all. And as long as it continues to be that way, this team is going nowhere fast. And that's why I think that this new ownership group has really got to figure out a balance between the young talent that they possess and veterans that they need to frankly create a middle ground that gives this team a better chance. I think they just got too many young players that unfortunately, as I've said before, the inmates are running the asylum and it's not working. And I do think that ended up being Brandon Hyde's mistake. And it's a mistake that they're still paying for.
It's as if the sophomore jinx hit the entire Baltimore Orioles baseball team. It's just because the pitching, but even with pitching this year, if they had good pitching, they'd be giving those pitchers no run support with the offense they've had. So what a bad year. But let's get to another.
Batting averages of some of these guys, Jackson Holiday, Adley Rushman, just look at these batting averages. They're not very good. So you're right. They're not scoring any runs. And you're putting a lot of pressure on the defense. You're putting a lot of pressure on that pitching staff. And unfortunately, it's imploded.
They're not making, they can't even make it up with, say, situational baseball.
No.
Get me a bunt, get me a sac fly, get me a deep shot to right field to move the runner over. They can't seem to get any of that going yet. Well, how about a feel good story? John, I don't know if you were aware of this. You're aware of a lot in baseball. This might have slipped past you. Detroit Tigers are playing really good baseball.
And I'll tell you what, Tariq Skubal, if I'm going to vote for a Cy Young candidate or Cy Young winner for the first half of the year, he's the guy.
Lights out, man.
It's a team that has some young talent, but it's also got some veterans on that roster that it's mixing together rather nicely. The idea of putting Javi Baez in the outfield and putting him in center field turned out to be an absolute stroke of genius by A.J. Hinch and by that front office and anybody else that was involved in that decision, because it's allowed that outfield to become so much better, and the infield has become better based on a new collection of people up the middle. This team has become very good because of subtle changes that were made in the offseason that's allowed this team to take off the way it has. But I do think that it has a very good mix of young players and veterans, and that's the difference between what the Tigers are doing and what the Orioles can't do.
It's a really feel-good story. You watched it. Remember we said what happened to the Orioles? It didn't carry over. Last season's carrying over for the Tigers. They got a 5-game lead over the Guardians and the Twins.
And remember when it started for the Tigers. It started for the Tigers last Labor Day weekend. That was the team that was on the outside looking in as far as the playoffs were concerned, had a tremendous month of September that got them into the playoffs, and they rode it to the second round of the playoffs before the Guardians finally beat them. But that month of September last year is really, I think, what proves to this baseball team that they could be and are that good.
Speaking of teams that are not in first place anymore, Louis, 9-1 in their last 10 games has allowed the Philadelphia Phillies to move past the New York Mets
Huh.
in first place in the NL East. And boy, man, the Phillies are doing it every which way.
Yeah, they sure are.
And
Yeah,
Zach
it is.
Wheeler is the guy. Zach Wheeler has been the guy at the front of that rotation that if you're going to have a National League Cy Young winner for the first half of the year, he's it.
He's really gotten better. And it hasn't been one of these quick rises for Zach, but he's just steadily gotten better and better and better, much better than I thought he was going to get. And I didn't see him as an ace. I know he was ace potential.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see him as an ace. And even if he was named an ace, not the kind of guy who would just, but this guy's an ace. This guy has pitched himself into an ace and has pitched the Philadelphia Phillies.
And I'll say this about the Phillies. The one thing you've got to say about them is we're talking about an older baseball team that who knows how much longer they can keep this up.
Right.
But their window of opportunity is starting to close. And
it's closing fast.
Yeah, it is closing. I mean, Bryce Harper's getting up there in age. Other players on that team are getting up there in age as well. And so, unfortunately, for the Phillies, it really is now. It's now for them. And it'll be interesting to see when the trade deadline comes, when we get to that point of the year, whether or not they make moves to really fortify the theory and the thinking that it's now or never.
You would think they have to make a move now because, yes, the window's still open next year, but that window's closing real fast. Anything can shut it down next year. This is the year that the Phillies want to make that move. So you want to try to see if you can make a signing or two that's just basically going to push you over the top past the Mets and deep into the postseason. Hey,
and to deal with eventually the Dodgers and the Padres.
Yeah. You always got
to deal with them. If you want to get to the World Series, you got to do it. So
it isn't a move or moves to beat the Mets.
No,
you're ahead of them now. You got the team to beat the Mets out of the East. You're making moves to prepare yourself for who you're going to face down the road in the playoffs. And Louis, one team that's not going to get there, and it seems strange, and they're getting healthy. The Atlanta Braves are getting healthier. Acuna Jr. back. Strider just hit somebody. I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
But he hit, I think it was Phillies.
What, Bryce Harper?
Harper. He hit Harper. Yeah, Harper left in a lot of pain. But the Braves, Louis, this it's a Braves team we didn't expect to see this way, and they still got time, but they seem to be struggling. Hey, Peyton, you're not there anymore. We're talking about the Braves. Louis, they're not, they're struggling.
You're struggling, but they have done better in the past couple of weeks. And, with Acuna back, I think it's going to be, more stronger on their offense. So I wouldn't necessarily count the Braves out just yet. Yeah, I know they're a little bit below 500, but they're a vast improvement than they were 6 weeks ago. So, I think with the more healthier lineup, I think they're going to get stronger. And I think they have a good chance to make a run later in the year. So I wouldn't write them off just yet.
I think the Braves end up being a second half team that people become very concerned about.
And that's the thing they're going to have to be. They're going to have to be, and I agree with you, John. If there's a team that I, as a Met fan and Phillies fan, better think about in the second half, is the Braves. Listen, they've gone through injuries and gone through things these last couple of years. This is still the same badass team in Atlanta. They got the roster. They got the staff. They just have to get healthy. They just have to get healthy and get. So if it isn't this year, everybody's going to be back and ready next year. So,
and if you're a Mets fan, you have to be concerned with what Juan Soto's not doing for you.
Oh, listen, thank you for bringing that up. I can't even believe I didn't talk about it. Maybe because I was trying to avoid it. When the little brouhaha about him not running the bases.
Well, that came up in Boston when the Mets were here, and that did really escalate. Yes.
First of all, I'm not even going to speak about his answers because where I come from, Poppy, smack you across the face for an answer like that. One of the pet peeves I've always had, and I remember having it, John Louis, as a little boy. If I see a base runner, if I see a runner not run out a hit. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up with Charlie Hustle. I didn't expect everybody to run it out like Charlie Hustle, but the three of us grew up in a time where guys ran it out. But every once in a while, you see this guy. You got 700 and something, like $1 billion, right? $750 million. Like, see, I can't be an owner. I don't know. I would break ethics, something, because I would tell you to your face. That means every ground ball. I don't care if it's a pop up to second. You run like it's a ball hitting a gap. In other words, you're getting paid too much damn money. And on top of that, what's his batting average? I don't want to know because the last time I checked it, I got sick. You're not getting the job done. New York is a place for prima donnas, but not as a New York Met, not as a professional athlete. So yes, John, glad you brought it up because that's been a big letdown. So much of a letdown. We can talk and give Phillies the credit that we gave them. Zach Wheeler, what they've done to go 9-1 these last 10 games and give the credit where it's due. I'm going to give the credit where it's due for the New York Mets for going 5-5 the last 10 games, not playing so good the last 15 games, losing first place right now. And I want to put that on you, Juan Soto. I'm put it on you, Papi, because you're getting paid plenty of money to win baseball games, not make some kind of impact. To win, you're getting paid way too much money to win baseball games, and he's not getting it done, John. Whoa, you got me started there, buddy.
Yeah, it is a pity that he hasn't made the kind of impact that Met fans were hoping for, the front office was hoping for, everybody was hoping for, actually, because they really thought he was the final piece towards something that was going to be a championship.
I saw the highlight because I didn't see it live. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, that ball he hit in Boston that he did not hustle out was really what started it. Yes.
John.
I know.
John, back in the days, man, they'll cut your salary for that.
True. That's true, but not nowadays. No, that's right. You're right, but not nowadays. No.
They'll cut your salary for that. But for those of you that don't know that about the old days, players would go into the next season and make less than they made the season before because they didn't produce.
There were players back then that really did hold, I think, more players accountable for what they didn't do as opposed to what it's like now.
Right, because if you do that now, you'll have a mutiny.
Oh, there would be a mutiny for sure.
Another feel-good story, the Chicago Cubs, John. Chicago Cubs playing good baseball. Huh? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are. And look, again, it's a division that is just wide open, and the Cubs are in the mix. The Cardinals are in the mix. The Brewers are still in the mix. They're playing much better at home themselves. And you've got an interesting race that's starting to develop in that division that is going to affect how the wild card eventually could play out as you get later on into the summer and into the early stages of fall.
And what did I say earlier? In case you boys and girls don't know, the winner in the final score of a baseball game is the team that scores more runs than the other. And as we talked about the Yankees and others scoring, 324 runs for the Chicago Cubs is tops in Major League Baseball.
And think about it. Cody Bellinger is not with that team anymore.
No.
He's now in New York with the Yankees.
Right.
That offense has gotten better without his bat in that lineup.
They are ripping the leather off that baseball, and they're sharing it throughout the lineup, which is so good to see there in Chicago. St. Louis Cardinals are not going to go anywhere. They're 3 games back, so let's not.
Cardinals credit, a team that a lot of people didn't think much of back in spring training has become something to think about.
And the other story in the National League Central is not about statistics or standings. John and I have made it clear our love, our commitment, and our passion for college baseball. It's where it happens.
Now, the good part of the year is about to start.
And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. We have watched the development closely of many players, but Paul Skeens has been something special to watch. And John, we find ourselves in a situation in Pittsburgh right now where it's not even about, well, it is a little bit about this last place baseball team. But this last place baseball team with a star on there. And now the questions are, because no matter, it's like the Pirates don't seem to understand, like some teams. When you get yourself a star or two, build around them, spend money, get some talent in, and at least see what you can do in a window, as we speak of windows. If it doesn't work, go back to do what you were doing. Paul Skeens, now rumors, John, are the Pirates getting ready to get rid of trade Paul Skeens, and I think it's so unfair to this young kid.
Well, not only that, but that window you talk about has only got 5 years left to it, because that's how long it is before Skeens can become a legitimate free agent. And so the Pittsburgh Pirates really do have some decisions to make here that unfortunately is going to force them to do something one way or another. I think the trade rumors of Paul Skeens are certainly a bit too soon, but nevertheless, he is the kind of trade chip that could really, the Pirates can get whatever they could potentially get. So, I mean, he's right. It's a loaded move, but again, you're talking about a fan base in Pittsburgh that doesn't like the ownership because the ownership hasn't spent enough money. So here you have what some would consider a generational talent that is in your organization, is the potential face of your baseball team, and you're not spending money to surround him with enough to really make this work. And I think it's justifying the fan base's anger at the ownership group and wanting that ownership group to get out.
I feel for Skeens. Now, he's got many years to play. He's going to be great, et cetera, et cetera.
But it's not going to be many years in Pittsburgh. That's the point. And I think that Paul Skeens may already be starting to think about his next move.
I would think that he is. That's for sure. Him and his agent, absolutely thinking about that. Hey, listen, Louis, I'm trying to get the hell out of there.
So what Pittsburgh has been, I mean, when they start out good, they always find a way to seem to screw it up. I thought Skeens was going to be, there was going to be, a great asset to the Pirates.
He is a great asset to the Pirates, Louis, but if he doesn't have enough around him, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Right, that is the problem. Yes, that's
where's everybody else? I mean, where's everybody else? I mean, Skeens looking to be the savior of the Pirates. Unfortunately, it's not good enough.
I mean, let's face it. Every fifth day that Paul Skeens goes out there, it's must-see TV in Pittsburgh. It has to be that way. Every fifth day he goes out there.
And every day in between is must. It's must.
Yeah,
it's not.
That's a damn shame. Last but not least, in Major League Baseball, Louis, who is the only team in Major League Baseball that can beat the Los Angeles Dodgers?
Padres? Otherwise, the Dodgers themselves. Well, I mean, they're close.
I like that, Louis. They're two games up on the Giants and the Padres, okay? But, John, here's my thing right now. Remember when we, in the beginning, before the season started, during the preseason and all, we talked about the Los Angeles Dodgers in this unfreaking believable lineup that they were about to showcase to Major League Baseball. We talked about that by the All-Star break. Could it be Is it possible if these guys win 60, 65 games? 33-21, John. Look, I don't know how the season will end, but boy, if you're a Los Angeles Dodger fan, it's got to be one disappointing start of the season.
Well, look, what did we talk about with the Minnesota Frost at the very early stages of this program? That they weren't interested in a regular season title. It was just about the playoffs. I think you could put the LA Dodgers in the same category. They don't care about the regular season title. They're just going to do enough to make the playoffs. And then once they get there, they're going to unleash that great team that we all think they possess.
They better.
The reason why they can't.
Right. There is no reason they can't. I agree. There's
Right. No, there's no reason why they can't. There is no reason why they can't. Okay, so we're going to get out of baseball here, that kind of baseball. And we're going to go into this kind of baseball, in which I'm then going to go to comments and bring this back. Yes, college baseball, the field of 64. Omaha, Nebraska is nice and clean and tidy and ready for all the fun. And as Peyton Jones says, go Vols. The reigning champs are coming to defend their title. Yeah, Tennessee Volunteers are coming to defend their title, and we know how strong the ACC and the SEC is. They basically represent the field. But how do you secure yourself the number one seed in the college baseball tournament? Well, one, you come from the SEC. That helps a whole lot. Two, you win your final 8 games of the season, while the other teams up top won and lost. And then you go into your tournament, in this case, the SEC baseball tournament, against the best in the world. Right? The best in college baseball. And you absolutely dominate on your way to the SEC title. 3 games, you give up 3 runs, and the Vanderbilt Commodores find themselves, John, number 1 in the field.
Number 1 overall seed, number 1 in the RPI ranking, number 1 everywhere. They just put it together at the very right time to provide themselves with an opportunity to potentially change the mix when it comes to what could end up in Omaha and what eventually will end up there. They're going to host a regional in Nashville that at the moment you would expect that they get out of, and they would give themselves a chance to host a super regional too, based on that as well. But there's no question the Vanderbilt Commodores, they put it together at the right time, and they have put a pretty interesting streak together that I do think has the rest of college baseball becoming a little bit concerned about somebody that maybe they weren't as concerned about as the season was rolling along, because it looked like Vanderbilt was just one of those teams. But now they've kind of separated themselves and have made it a little bit more interesting once you get to Friday when the tournament begins.
Yeah. I mean, look. Find their speaking of the Vols, the 14 seed. For the defending champs, it's been a topsy-turvy season as far as their defense of the title. They've shown some flashes of last year's team, but they've also, shown how vulnerable they can be.
It's not last year's team, and I think that's the part of this that you have to understand. It's not last year's team.
But I love that, John, because that. See, this is why we're partners, people. I was going to finish that by saying, but that's what happens. The thing about college is players graduate, they move on, and you end up not having the same team as John just said.
Because there are 3 things that happened. Graduation took place, the draft took place, and so did the transfer portal. And because all those things are in the mix, when you talk about college baseball, nobody has last year's team back. And so because of that, it really does become a brand new mix. The team that I'm very interested in, once we get to the weekend, happens to be Oregon State. The independent, 7th in the RPI. They got themselves a regional, but They haven't played a game since May 17th. And the reason why is because they have no affiliation with a conference. And so while everybody was playing conference tournament baseball last week, they were doing nothing. And so it's going to be 2 weeks before the Oregon State Beavers go back onto the baseball field to play a legitimate game. And it'll be very interesting to see how they handle and what they did during this period of time to get them ready for what Friday is going to be. This is where being an independent does become a bit of a problem. Up until this point, it hadn't been for them, and obviously the record will prove that. But the fact that they did not play at all last week, yes, they got plenty of rest. Yes, they got everybody healthy that may have had some nicks and bumps and bruises along the way. But they haven't played a legitimate game since.
And it's so important, rhythm. Having that rhythm, having that routine, keeping it going. Louis, you can practice all you want. It's not the same as a baseball game.
Not at all.
It's not.
You can simulate all you want. That's why it's called simulated. So yeah, that's a good point, John. But John,
and I do think if this doesn't work out for Oregon State, if for some reason they don't get out of that region which they'll host, how fast does Oregon State try and find a conference to put themselves into for next year to avoid what they're doing now?
Yeah, because this could be a decider for them.
Yeah. It could very well be, yes. If they don't get out of this regional, yes, it really could be.
You know that we and others will be pointing to that time off and how it affected them and why they had the
time off. It's more why they had the time off than the fact that they had the time off.
Speaking of great seasons, John, in the ACC, North Carolina Tar Heels have come to play.
Look at that. Well, first of all, North Carolina winning the ACC, they ran roughshod. Oh. Now, they did have a double bye, and that certainly helped them. They took care of Boston College when they got to the quarterfinals, and then they took care of Florida State. And I think that was the surprise that they took care of Florida State. The interesting thing about the ACC to me is Miami. If there was one team from the ACC that I think you could make the argument that they shouldn't be in this tournament, Miami would be the one, simply because they played the very first game of the tournament against California and they got run ruled. And they weren't playing all that well coming into it. They get run ruled in the very first game of that ACC tournament, that 9:00 game that we talked about last week, that Cal had to get up before the crack of dawn to play, and they run ruled a team that had 31 wins. And I think Miami is the one that you can make the argument for that they didn't deserve to make the field.
I don't think, John. When I saw that Miami made the field, first question was why and how. They didn't do enough, John. They didn't.
I don't think they did either. I mean, they did play Florida. They did play Florida State.
Yeah, but they didn't do enough for a resume for the field of 64.
I mean, it's a 31-25 team. It's only 6 games above 500.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't hard to see. Here's where Miami was consistent all year. They were consistently not a field of 64 team.
They were consistently a middle of the pack team in the conference too, and that's the other problem.
Right. How do you make the field of 64 and you're a middle of the pack team in your own conference? It's going to happen every now. John, number 11, Coastal Carolina, 40.
That's to host a regional, and that's really big for them. They get to host a regional, which gives them an opportunity to get to a super and potentially put themselves in position. Coastal Carolina and Southern Mississippi are the 2 teams that have a chance to host regionals, get the supers, and potentially make the impact and get into Omaha. Those are the 2.
Right. And I picked Coastal Carolina, John, because 48 wins.
I know.
They have been working. They've been working. This isn't something that just happened. They've been working here these last couple of years to get this spot. They finally got it. I like their chances of getting to a super, John.
So do I. And they've got a couple of wins over Clemson, which also helped them out.
Yeah.
They've got some very good non-conference wins, very good midweek wins that have really propelled them to this position. Now, if you Coastal Carolina, and the same thing can be said of Southern Mississippi, you can't mess this up.
Yeah. No. Huge opportunity right here. So, we're going to pay close attention to, obviously.
Now, up here in New England, what was interesting was
Yeah.
Northeastern make the tournament. You had Rhode Island make the tournament. You had Central Connecticut State make the tournament. So you had several New England schools that ended up making the tournament. Northeastern ends up going to Tallahassee to have to deal with Florida State if they want to play in a super regional. And I think there'll be a 2 seed in that region, no doubt about it. And they will have to deal with Florida State if they're going to get there. But that's I think there's a very interesting Power 4 versus mid-major team to see if who can move on. If they can avoid Jamie Arnold, and hopefully the Huskies can do that. If they can avoid Jamie Arnold, which is by far the best pitcher, not only on that staff, but really in that conference, if they can avoid him, then I think they have an interesting shot at potentially getting out and going to a super.
Obviously, now at this point on the show, as the games happen, well, next week on the show, we get to see. This is the fun part, John.
Right.
This is the fun part because you know who you expect to win. Literally, the teams that have no business and won't lose. But there's always a team that becomes the story. I want to see who that team is.
Yeah, I do too. You look at that Chapel Hill Regional, for instance, that North Carolina is going to host. The 4 teams that are in that region have all won at least 30 games.
At least 30 games.
Carolina at the top has 42. Holy Cross, that'll be the 4th seed in that tournament, has 31. That's a loaded region, no question. And even if North Carolina comes out of that region, and I expect that they will, still, it's not going to be as easy to get out of that region as some people may think.
Great example, John. Could be the reason we get our story out of.
It could be, yes. It could very easily be, yes.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, so we have reached that point. Louis, final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, as I said, Yankees are coming on strong. Aaron Judge keeps hitting those home runs and is keeping the Yankees in good shape. And like I said, okay, the Braves have been off to a slow start, but now they got their heavy hitters back. And I know it's only May, but I think with the lineups and Acuna back, I think they're going to be a serious challenge as we look forward to the months ahead. So I wouldn't count them out.
John, final thoughts?
Well, while the Field of 64 is about to begin, another phase is also about to begin, and that's summer collegiate baseball, and that will start on Thursday all across this country. So for those players that did not make the field, they'll now get a chance to play summer collegiate baseball, and for those that are in draft eligible status, it's going to provide them with an opportunity to be seen by scouts and see whether or not they can be drafted when that comes up in the middle of July.
My final thoughts have nothing to do with baseball. In 1994, I lived in my first house in Nashville. Don't get excited. It was a rental, but it was a house. I lived in a trailer, and then I lived with some friends, and I lived in a trailer, and I got this house. Okay, nothing fancy, but the year after, I was able to sit in my dining area watching the New York Knicks and the Houston Rockets play the 1994 NBA Finals. The Knicks go up 3 games. They go up 3 games to 2, and you could see the sharks swimming in the water. We could taste blood. Yes. We know it's Elijah Wan Drexler, but we can do this. And then John Starks,
idiot, moron.
Don Starks literally defined the meaning of shooting bricks. And even when the Knicks had a chance in the second half to make an adjustment, Pat Riley said, "I left him in because he brought us to the dance." I like a good dancer too. But when the dancers start to fall down, I'm going to ask somebody. I'm going to ask somebody else to dance. In just a few minutes, it's Game 4, Cambridge Fieldhouse. Indiana Pacers playing host to the New York Knicks.
And apparently Halliburton's dad is going to be there tonight. Apparently they gave him a suite.
I heard.
Yeah.
He has a suite. They put him in a suite, and I'm glad that it was just a misunderstanding. I don't think he ever deserved to be stripped of
No,
his.
he didn't.
But as a Knicks fan,
That's all.
as a Knicks fan, it goes like this. This is it. It's 31 years later. Here we are, and this is it.
Well, it's not more. It's more than 31 years later when you think about it. It's 1973 since the last time you.
No. I say 31 years because at least it's been 31 years since we've sat on the cusp of a championship. 1999 doesn't count.
Well, I don't know. I tell you what, Oklahoma City is quite the wagon.
Oh, I don't even want to go there. Let me pray to be. Let me pray to be Eastern Conference champion, because once we get to the finals against Oklahoma City, whoever gets to the finals against Oklahoma City, you got a lot of problems. A lot of problems.
Yeah, NCAA would be the main problem. That kid can do a lot of things.
Yeah, I can sum up for you in three big letters right there. SGA.
Yeah, those are three very important letters.
I didn't bother to try to pronounce his name. And then I heard it a couple of years ago. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Okay. SGA. The guy's pretty good. He averaged 27 points, 25. Wow, really? Wait, they came back the next season, averaged like 30 points a game, and now he's the MVP, and he's like a quiet assassin.
Even Anthony Edwards looked just absolutely irrelevant last night.
Listen, they have made Edwards irrelevant. They made the best player on the planet, Nikola Jokic, irrelevant. That defense is something that we have not seen in the NBA in a long time. They literally have. When you're playing basketball, you want to shut down the opposing star. You get a game plan, shut him down. Maybe there's 2 stars. Shut them down, limit them, and make everyone else beat you. This Oklahoma City defense doesn't even have to worry about that. They shut everybody down. It doesn't matter who it is. They shut them all down. It's just, I'm praying for the Knicks, but whoever makes it to the finals against Oklahoma City. Wow.
Pray.
Wow. Yeah, pray. A lot of praying. Thank you for joining us. This is In the Batter's Box, the NJSC Sports Weekly Baseball Show. I'm your host, Ralph Garcia, joined by the guys, John Doucette and Louis Tenor. Remember the website, njscsports.com, where you catch all of your current content. Appreciate you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow because we got to talk NBA.
You know it.
Until then, God, I gave my heart and soul to you. I believe in you and your word and your love and all the faith and all the good words in the good book. I'm not supposed to ask for much. Lord, I'm asking hard. I'm asking for Louis. I'm asking for New Yorkers. I'm asking for replanted New Yorkers across the world. 31 years. We got to have Game 4, because if we don't, we're going to need a nod. We're going to need a lot of amens if we don't win this game.
Exactly.
All right, Louis. Go Knicks. Thank you for joining us, folks.
24 hours.